beginning of 2016. Started looking at podcasting toward the end of 2016. Got back into door-to-door because I still needed to make money to pay my bills, but with the intention of not staying door-to-door, just to make money. So 2017, I was knocking doors still and started the podcast in August, and then quit door-to-door for good in September of 2018. So
welcome to the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. So welcome to another amazing episode of the Gentleman's SHF Talk with Alex Ramirez. And as always, I have an incredible guest, which I'm very excited to talk to and learn from today. But before I actually introduce him to you, I just want to give a big shout out to all of you who have been leaving reviews, comments, who have been liking our stuff on all those social podcasting platforms, social media, and to those who have been leaving reviews and comments and likes on YouTube as well. Thank you very much. All of you who take the time to leave a comment or a review, all of you are the ones who make all the difference. So to you, I say thank you. And today I have Travis Chappell. Is that right, man? That's how Chappell, you say it?
Yep.
Chappell. Okay, cool. And he's the founder and CEO of Guestio, right? Guestio.com, which is a software that connects high-level guests with high-level content creators, podcasters, right? And he's the host of a top-rated show called Build Your Network. And in addition to being featured on Entrepreneur, NASDAQ, Yahoo Finance, Read Write, Travis has also been featured in Forbes as the top 10 podcasters and podcasts that will change your life, alongside of Joe Rogan, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ferriss, and others. So very excited to talk to you, man. And thank you very much for being here, and you're welcome.
Alex, what's up, man? Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So, man, look, the first thing that I do with my guests is make them a little bit uncomfortable and tell them to introduce themselves and talk about their entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
Sure. So I grew up extremely religious, kind of in a bubble/cult, and found myself in college pursuing a ministerial degree, double majored in Bible church ministries, graduated, realized I didn't want to do that, but didn't really have any real skills at that point. My degree was pretty worthless considering what it was in, and it was also unaccredited. So it was quite literally a worthless piece of paper, not just figuratively like it is for most people's degrees. And I got from there, I just didn't really know what else I was going to do. Mm-hmm. So I jumped into the only thing that I knew how to do at the time, which was door-to-door sales. And because I had done that in college, and just made more sense to me to do that than go work a desk job or something like that. So I started in door-to-door and started making some decent money, and then quickly came to the conclusion that I also didn't want to do that long-term. So now the thing I was qualified to do, that I got a degree in, I didn't want to do. And the thing that I knew how to do and had skill in, which was door-to-door sales, I didn't want to do. So at that point, it was kind of like a reinvention of myself, and started reading more, listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts for the first time. And then after listening to a bunch of podcasts, decided that I should start my own. That led me into podcast coaching and consulting for entrepreneurs, doing done-for-you production work, design work, and stuff like that. And then all of that eventually culminated to the founding of the software company now, Guestio. And then we're launching a new podcast here in the next month or two. So yeah, that's 60-second kind of rundown.
Amazing, man. You nailed it. So, man, let's see. So from the time you were like basically lost, right? And like you didn't know what to do with your life, to the time in which now you're running like a software, right, company as a service to help what you were helping your clients with, right? So how long did that take? How long did that transformation take?
So I quit door to door in 2016, beginning of 2016. Started looking at podcasting toward the end of 2016. Got back into door to door because I still needed to make money to pay my bills, but with the intention of not staying door to door, just to make money. So 2017, I was knocking doors still and started the podcast in August, and then quit door to door for good in September of 2018. So from the time that I initially stopped until I was full time doing something else was 2 years, two and a half years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went all into on the podcast, on all the podcasting thing on 2018.
Yeah. That
And
was
then
when I went full time. Yep.
2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22. So less than 4 years. And, you've had quite a, like I would say a lot of success with your podcast, to helping other people start their own podcast, build their network, becoming top 10 rated podcast alongside of Joe Rogan and Gary Vaynerchuk, and now having a software. So 4 years, man. That's amazing, right? Like, it's not like 4 years is nothing. How old are you right now?
I am 29.
29. Cool. So 29. Yeah. And how do you feel about it, man? Because I mean, for me, when you have gifts and like you're so used to your gifts that you don't think they're valuable, right? And you make a lot of progress, but like if you set a goal, no matter if you achieve that goal tomorrow. So like if, for example, you have a goal of having 1,000 clients and you achieve that goal tomorrow, the next day you're going to be dissatisfied because you're going to want 2,000, right? So how do you feel, man? Are you like,
I feel tired. It's just a lot of work, but I also feel really proud of where my team and I have come from and where we are now. I feel excited and optimistic for the future. But yeah, day to day, man, I feel tired. It's a lot of work. I got 2 little ones at home. Sounds like we had our first kids around the same time. My son is a little over 2.5. He'll be 3 in May. Then my daughter is about 1.5 years old now. She's coming up on 18 months. So it's just been hectic, dude. We got the 2 little ones running around, and then got a software startup. I still put out content on my podcast. We're launching a new podcast. I still do a little bit of coaching consulting. I'm in 2 different mastermind groups that have like quarterly events. Speaking at 3 or 4 events this year so far, and it's only February. So it's a lot of work, dude, but it's been, like I said, I feel very proud of being able to start from scratch and get to where we are in that period of time.
Proud and blessed, right? And I feel excited, because one of the purposes of my podcast is to interview men who are literally the definition of where I want to be 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. And it's like talking to my, self 10 years from now, right? And like receiving free advice and stuff like that. So like, I feel excited, because you're like, we're in like the kind of the same path, you're just ahead of me. So it's pretty cool, man. So yeah.
Were you 20, 21?
Right now I'm 21.
21.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Awesome.
Let's see, man. So your degree, what was your degree on?
Bible and church ministries.
And you did that because your parents told you that you should do that, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was less my parents and more the complete environment that I grew up in. Everybody, a lot of the authority figures in my life pushed us that direction, like it was just always kind of in our faces that was what needed to be done, was like there's souls to be saved. So why would you do anything else with your life other than full-time, ministry? So that's found myself in Bible college at, age 17 or 18.
Mm-hmm. So once you found out that your like degree was totally useless, like you said, how did you feel? Did you take like a perspective of blame, or were you like, holy shit, all my entire life, everyone has told me what to do with my life. Now I'm going to choose.
Yeah, it was a little bit of all of the above. I don't remember playing the blame game that much because all the decisions that I made were mine ultimately. Even though, obviously as a kid growing up in that type of a world, you have free will or whatever, the freedom to choose. And some of my friends didn't take the same path that I did, but it certainly felt a little bit manipulative, especially now as an adult, looking back on the way that they would talk to us as teenagers and things. So, but either way, I still made the decisions. And so when I came out of it, it was very much, it was kind of like that. It was like my whole life I've been told not only what to do, but told that this one path is the correct path. And now that I'm not on that path, I felt like I was doing the work of a 15-year-old when I was 21, 22. I had a wife, I had a mortgage to pay. We bought a house. I had bills. I had, expenses. And here I am sitting on the couch trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, with a degree that I don't want. It was just like like I said, I felt like I was doing the work of a 15-year-old. It was like, what do I want to do? I looked up applications for the fire department, for the FBI. Dude, if I was like watching a TV show based on something, I would like go look up, like how to go do that thing. Like I have no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Sales just kind of piqued my interest because to me, it seemed like the fastest way to make more money than anybody else in my age. And since I didn't have a degree, it was going to be difficult to go get some sort of a salaried position to get to six figures. I mean, that was going to be a really long time frame in between the time that I started working and the time that I worked my way to earn a six-figure salary somewhere. I knew that was going to just be like way too long in terms of like the timeline that I wanted to be able to accomplish it in. So yeah, that's why I fell into sales. And the crazy thing about it too is I was doing 100% commission door-to-door sales, which is pretty tough form of selling.
Yeah.
After I was deciding not to do it anymore, I decided like, well, why don't I just go in the meantime while I'm trying to figure out what I want to do? Why don't I just go get like a regular sales position somewhere? They pay you a salary, you get benefits, you get a company car and all that kind of stuff. And I went and applied for all these jobs. I couldn't get any job. I still have like emails, like rejection emails from these sales organizations. And it was just like, it was mind blowing to me. It was just like, wait a second, you're going to hire that person over me? Like I'm used to doing this hardcore form of selling and you guys are going to spoon feed me leads. Like if this is what I can do there, what do you think I'm going to do with this? And, but nobody wanted to hear it. And I think probably just because of my age, I was 22, 23 at the time. So I think people were just looking for people with more experience. But, again, to me, that was a mistake. And as a sales manager, I think that is a mistake to look only for people that have experience rather than people who are young, hungry, ambitious, and are ready to learn and work. But at the end of the day, that just wasn't the path that I was going to go down. And I'm, glad that none of those companies employed me because maybe I would still be, some regional manager at some sales organization somewhere. Not to say that would be a horrible thing, but it's definitely not the path that I would have chosen comparatively to the one that I'm on. So, but yeah, dude, it was a weird time. It was a weird time. I felt just alone, fearful of the future, not sure what I was going to do, how I was going to make money, kind of useless, you know what I mean? So it was a kind of a dark period, but I used it as kind of a chance to reset and reinvent myself a little bit, which looking back over the last few years, I think has become a powerful tool in my arsenal, which is the power to continuously reinvent yourself and learn something new. And I think that's kind of accidentally proven to be a valuable skill set for me.
Nice. So yeah, actually, man, a lot of my audience are, married entrepreneurs with kids, maybe not married, but they're in a relationship in which they have kids and they have to, take care of themselves, figure out the money game, be there for their wives, be there for their kids. So at 21, you already had your first kid and in a mortgage and all of that?
No. We didn't have the first kid until a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But I got married at age 21 and bought my first house at age 21.
Okay. So it sounds like you didn't have it figured out, right? So like, it sounds like you didn't follow the modern gentleman's path, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I don't know exactly if I would say that, but yeah, I was, I was in a position where I didn't have life figured out, and I did not have the ability to do what a lot of other 21-year-olds might have done in that situation, which is just go live at home
mhm.
and, sleep on your mom's couch for a bit, or go sleep in your childhood bedroom or whatever. I didn't have that option. You know what I mean? As a married man with a mortgage payment and cell phone bills, insurance, and all those, bills, it was like, there wasn't an option just to like go back and sleep at my parents' house. It was like, I guess I better figure out how to do this adulthood thing and not go into debt.
Yeah. And so like the key was reinventing yourself, right? Which is what you must do, like it's be, do, have, right? You want, sometimes when you're at a certain point in your life in which like you got no option, right? You got no option to go back. And the only way that you can keep on moving forward, moving to is forward. And in order for you to do that, you got to reinvent yourself. So man, for people out there, for some male entrepreneurs who have kids, they have a wife, they're struggling. The money game is always, the money is what always seems to be like the major concern. So what would you say to them, man? Like, what would you like? How did you reinvent yourself? How were you able to, let's see, come out the other way, succeeding?
First off is self-awareness and clarity. This is something that before I started in this world, it didn't really ever dawn on me that that was a big part of it, but it's a massive part of it. And I read a book early on when I first started reading books. It was like one of the first like big books I ever finished, and it was High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. And he talks about the what are the top habits of high performers, and what are the habits that high performers
Mm-hmm.
consistently share with each other. And the very first one is clarity. And I remember reading that going like, is this really that big of a deal? And then you start going through stuff and start realizing how important that is, and how often people don't take the time to get clear on things. And they let that lack of clarity prevent them from taking action, or they let that lack of clarity set them on a path that somebody else wanted for them, which was the more likely thing that I was going to do. I'm kind of a action taker,
Mm-hmm.
by nature, I think a little bit. Like I always just want to go do the thing instead of just hear about it or think about it. So I wasn't going to be paralyzed by inaction, but I definitely was I was definitely about to take a path that was not my path, just because a bunch of other people in my life wanted me to take that path, which is where I think probably a lot of people are living, especially people that grew up in the more traditional sense, that who they respect the opinions of their authority figures and their parents and these people and that people that are in their lives, and all those people have an idea of what they should do with their life, which is go to college, get a good job, don't do anything risky, just trying to help them live in safety and certainty and comfort, and instead of pushing them outside of those things. And I think, like I said, I think a lot of people just exist doing, like, that's how you wake up when you're 40 and have that midlife crisis everybody talks about, because you wake up and go, oh, actually, not that I'm doing horribly in life, but these aren't the things that I wanted. It's
Mm-hmm.
like working really hard to climb this mountain for 15, 20 years of your, first launching into your career. And then you get to the top of the mountain and you look over and realize that you wanted to be on the top of the mountain next to you and not on the top of this mountain. And this is not anything to do with like being content or wanting too many things. Like, this is a pure clarity, self-awareness thing, is that your mountain might be different than my mountain. Your definition of success might be different than my definition of success. Your definition of true freedom might be a little bit different than my definition of true freedom. Like, you have to figure out what you want out of life. When you are sitting on the rocking chair on your front porch and you're 95 years old and you're coming to the end of your life and there's not really anything that you can do about it at that point, What do you want to have looked back on your life and seen at that time? Put yourself in that position if you've never done it before, and truly think about what's the type of life that you want to have lived. Or how many people did you want to impact or have some sort of a effect on? What type of income did you want to make? Where did you want to live? What type of house did you want to live? What type of weather did you want to be in? Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Are you married? Are you not married? Are you a best-selling author? Did you become an actor? Like, what do you want your life to look like? And I just think very, very, very few people ever take the time to sit down and think through what that looks like. And like I said, that sets them on this path that's just defined for them by all the other people in their life, because they don't really even know what they want. So they're just going to take the path that their parents put them on, or they're going to take the path that their authority figure, their youth pastor or their school teacher put them on, rather than forging the path that's going to make them the most happy, that's going to make them the most fulfilled, that's going to leave the biggest impact on their family. So it all starts with that clarity piece there. And if you're not 100% sure what you want out of life, then just start testing and tasting. You know what I mean? Like, get a taste of this, get a taste of that, go work this job for a little bit, go work that job for a little bit, move around, live somewhere else, get yourself out of your comfortable environment and go get uncomfortable somewhere. Force yourself to evolve and change. Listen to podcasts. There's a ton of personal development you can do absolutely for free. Listening to podcasts like this one, downloading audiobooks, listening to audiobooks, reading books, watching YouTube content. There's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of any content you want to get your hands on that's 100% available completely for free, that can help you reinvent yourself. If you want to reinvent yourself and have a different output, then you need to first change all of the inputs that are coming in. And that's going to be, if you're in a crisis and you're trying to figure out what you want in life, you shouldn't be spending your time watching Netflix. You should be spending your time watching Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory, or you should be listening to Tim Ferriss's show, or reading a book on marketing, or like doing stuff, interning somewhere, learning a new skill, taking a course at night. Like, taste things, test things, try things out, and see what appeals to you. Like especially if you're in your 20s. If you're anywhere near Alex's age, you should just be testing, tasting, trying to get around people who are going to push you to be the next version of yourself. And start crafting that environment to produce the person that you want to be. So I know it was a really long answer, but basically, first off, get clarity and have the self-awareness to understand what you want out of life. And then number two, learn, fill your brain with a bunch of things that sharpen it, rather than things that, suck the energy out of you and bring you down. And then number three, get around good people that are going to help you become the person that you want to become. Those are the three main things that I would do.
And one way you can do that is by podcasting, right? But man, to the first point, clarity, it's such an important point. And it's very rare that people have clarity on what they want, right? And it's so, so important. And not having clarity is one of the most sure ways that you can end up in your life not liking the answers to the questions of, did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? Right? Those are the three questions that inspired Brendan Bichard to do what he does. He got to the end of his life and he was like, well, no, he got in an accident that made him question if he has lived, if he has loved, if he has mattered. So yeah, clarity, definitely very important. What you put in is what you get out. So inputting a lot of good content into your brain, a lot of positivity, inspiring content, and then surrounding yourself with high-level people by like starting a podcast, just the way that I'm doing. This has helped me a lot. A podcast changed my life, man. That's one of the reasons that I started as well. So yeah, very, very, that was very valuable, man. I hope a lot of the, people who listen actually take action and start asking themselves, what is it that they want out of life, right? So just to like go back to you, man, a lot of people may have this excuse. Well, I don't know. Well, when you are going through the process, it doesn't seem like an excuse to you, because it doesn't seem like an excuse. So, like having kids and having a mortgage and being married and all of that, maybe, what if there's someone who's like, I'm married, I have kids, I can't be tasting around. I need to, have something that allows me to Hey, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to tell you that this podcast has completely changed my life in ways that you could never imagine, and I would like the same for you. Look, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and the fastest way for you to level yourself up in every area of your life is for you to connect with people who are where you want to be, build relationships with them, and connect with them. The best way for you to do that right now in the digital age is for you to start your own podcast. And I just wanted to let you know that I have a free training that you can get free access to. It's called the 30-day Net Worth Skyrocketing 3-step podcast cloak track framework. And it's going to show you how you can start and automate everything in your podcast, from finding your ideal guest, getting them on an interview with you, and creating an automated content machine in just 30 days. By executing on this free training, you're going to be able to connect with high-level people, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem, in just 30 days with less than 1 to 2 hours per week, so that you can increase your net worth, your authority, your trust, your client acquisition ability, and your opportunity. So there's a special link for this free training in the description of this video. Thank you for watching and tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of this episode. Bye-bye. Be safe and have something secure. What would you say to them?
I come back to the clarity thing. Like, what do you want out of life at this point? And yes, you have to navigate it differently. If you're married and you have kids and you got bills to pay, you can't just quit your job tomorrow and be like, law of attraction, I'm going to go do big things. Like there is a level of practicality that you owe to yourself and to your family, to be responsible and make good decisions, properly weigh risk versus reward. But the question remains the same. What do you want out of life? And if the answer is you want more, or you want something different than what you're doing right now, then something has to change. Like that's the big thing, man, is like people sit and complain, and they have the same complaints for decades, literal decades, the same exact complaints. And to me, it's just a matter of, look, I don't want to hear about your complaints anymore unless you're doing something to change it. Or stop complaining about it. Like, something has to change. Like, number one, your attitude needs to change. If you're not going to do anything different in your life, then you have to change your attitude about the way that you're looking at the situation that you're in. If you're going to sit there and tell yourself, well, I can't go after these big dreams and goals because I got kids, I got a wife, I got a mortgage. I can't do these things. It's good for other people, but I just personally, I can't do these things. It's like, okay, if that's the conversation you're going to have with yourself, then you better be able to change your outlook and your perspective on the day-to-day that you have now, or else the only other thing that's going to happen is you're going to be unhappy, unfulfilled. And if you're not taking care of yourself in those things, good luck taking care of your family. You're going to start resenting your kids. You're going to start resenting your wife. And that's not a way to live life either. So you're going to have to change your outlook, change your attitude. If your goals and the things that you say that you want matter that much to you, then changing your attitude is not going to have anything to do with it. I could have changed my attitude 100 times over, but at the bottom line, if I knew that if I got to the end of my life and I didn't accomplish the things that I set out to accomplish, or at least give it my 100% best effort to get there, I knew, and I still know, that I will have massive amounts of regret at that age. And so for me, it wasn't an option to just stay doing what I was doing. I had to go do something else because I knew that this wasn't going to satisfy me. So then you got to change your situation, right? Like, so change your attitude. If that's not something you're going to do, then change your situation. Get out of the situation that you're in. Change something about it. Like, again, don't quit your job tomorrow with nothing in the pipeline when you don't have enough money to cover your mortgage next month. I'm not telling you to do that. Be smart, be practical, but change something. Like, start a side hustle. Get an idea together and start, in your free hours. And again, instead of watching Netflix or drinking beer with your buddies or whatever it is that you do in your spare time, use your spare time to start building up a business on the side, to start bringing in more income, more revenue. Set a goal for yourself that if I can hit X amount of revenue in this business or X amount of profit in this business by X day, then I'll put in my 2 weeks. Like, change your situation, change something about what it is that you're going through, or again, you're gonna get to the end of your life and regret it. And then the last thing is change your expectations of what life's going to do. Like, something's got to change. You got to change your attitude. You got to change your situation, or you got to change your expectations. You know what I mean? Like, if you're expecting to live this super happy and fulfilled life, but the thing that you do for work, for instance, since you asked about money specifically, If the thing that you do for work to provide for your family is something that you do not enjoy, that sucks the life and energy out of you, you're going to be doing that thing, like newsflash, you're going to be doing that thing more than you're going to be doing anything else for the rest of your life. Like 40 hours a week, you're going to be doing that thing at least 40 hours a week. A lot of people, it's more than that they're working. And so if you don't like that, how can you expect life to be fun and fulfilling if the thing that you're doing for the majority of your waking hours sucks the energy out of you? Like, change your expectations of what life's going to give you. And if you're looking at that going like, well, that's a crappy option, like just make my expectations lower because that's what life's going to give me. Well, then, okay, don't change your expectations, change your outlook. Well, I don't want to change my outlook because then I'm still in the same situation. Okay, then change your situation. Like, something's got to change. You can't just keep being the same and expecting that things are going to be different. It's not how it works. Like, you gotta take some action and be proactive and change something about what you got going on if you want something different. But that's why I think it's so important to get clear on what you want. You know what I mean? If again, I come back to that at the end of all of that, because if you're not getting clear on what you want, then how do you know, how do you know which risk is worth it? Like, there's a lot of potential risks in life, and a lot of them end up with really great rewards. But if you don't know how bad you want that reward, then you don't know how much risk you should be willing to take to get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, when I started my podcast stuff, dude, I took out a credit card, a 0% credit card. This is another reason why credit is so important. I took out a 0% credit card, and it had a $42,000 credit limit. Within a year of starting my podcast, I had filled up the entire thing, all $42,000. I was $42,000 in credit card debt. And all of it was coaching, courses, education, masterminds, travel, hotels, flights, any information that I could get my hands on, any people that I could put myself around that were going to sharpen me, make me better. Like, everything that I could, like, my point in saying that is, like, I was so clear that this is what I wanted, that I was willing to put down. And this is when I was 23, 24 at the time. I didn't have that much money. You know what I mean? Like, we had money in the bank. So it wasn't just like pure debt. My goal, though, was when I took this card out, was I'm going to pay off this card with the income that I make on this new business. And that's what I did. Before I ever paid a dime in interest, I paid off the entire $42,000. My credit remained great the whole time. I never lost any point. Well, that's not true. I lost a couple points on my credit because if you utilize a full line of credit, you lose points on your credit. And I didn't know that you could put it in a business name back then to avoid it going against your personal name, which I know now. Cool. All that to say that, like, I didn't miss any payments. I didn't have to pay any interest. But I used that debt to help me start things from the beginning, and I went all in on it, and I took a big risk on it because I knew how bad I wanted it. And I knew that I wasn't going to stop until I figured it out. You know what I mean? So, like, if you don't know what that is, if you don't know what you want, then of course this seems super risky. It's like, well, man, I got to invest that much money, or I got to invest this much time, and I don't know when that's going to come back on me. That seems like really risky. Yes, it is really risky. You know why it's risky? Because the reward is worth it.
Yeah.
You can't expect to do what everybody else is willing to do and get the results that you want to get. If you want to get results that nobody else can get, then you got to do the things that nobody else is willing to do. And most people aren't willing to go put themselves in a big amount of debt to start a side hustle business that's purely online when they didn't have any previous knowledge or experience to be able to do it. Most people aren't willing to do that. So I knew, if I'm willing to do this, I'm willing to back it up with the work and the action, and not just go buy a course. Because some people are course junkies, right? I wasn't a course junkie. There's a difference. I bought a bunch of stuff, but I also followed it up with action. And then that's what, led me to being able to change my situation and put myself in a better place. All these sales companies wouldn't give me a job. So I just created my own job. Now we raised a 1.3 million for my software startup last year. And I am, for the first time in my life, on a salary, but it's the salary that I pay myself to be the CEO of my own company that I started. You know what I mean? So something's got to change, and you got to be willing to put yourself in the situation that you want to be in.
Cool, man. Yeah, that was really cool, full of value, man. one thing that I want to go back to is the fact that you need to put yourself first, right? That's an idea that you went through at the beginning when you started talking about this, putting yourself first, because if you don't get clear on what you want, and if you're not willing to put yourself first to go over it, you're going to end your life feeling regret. And I think that's one of the most scariest and worst feelings that you could end your life with, feeling regretful, right? Feeling thinking about what if I had done that? What if I had taken the action? What if I had taken the risk? What if I, holy shit, man, that's scary, right? And if you don't put yourself first, you end up resenting your kids, you end up resenting your wife, right? Thinking to yourself and telling yourself a story that the reason you didn't do what you said you wanted to do was because of them, which is not true. Is the only thing, the fact was that you weren't willing to put in the work, you weren't willing to take the action, and you weren't willing to do the things differently, right? Because you got to change something. And I just love, man, like where you're all about, because in the groups that I'm connected with, and I think that is badass. Like a lot of people might think that it was really risky, you know, the things that you did, you know, like going $43,000 in debt just to be able to like level up. I think it was badass, because in the last 2 years and a half, I've invested over $120,000 in my self-development, in like masterminds, courses, and flights, and just like you, man. So I think that's badass, because that's something that I'm doing. And the reason that I'm doing it is because I've heard what it takes from other people, right? So I'm doing it myself. And there's always this concept that comes up, like in the groups that I'm part of and stuff, of like, where am I right now? And if like you want to change it, right? If you want to change your current situation, get clear on where you want to go, right? So once you're clear on where you are and where you want to go, you reverse engineer that goal, and then you come up with what it will take for you to achieve that goal. And then it all comes down to how bad do you want it? Because once you figure out where you are, and once you figure out where you want to go, and you reverse engineer the step, and you literally end up with a step-by-step process to get to your goals, it will all come down to how bad do you want it? Because you'll know exactly what you need to do. And you know, that the answer to that question, how bad do you want it, it's what will allow you to like actually go through the process and take the entire action to get there, right?
Right. Because that's the most important thing. The commitment to figuring it out, no matter what's the most important thing. Like, if your will to win is for sale, then the first road bump that you experience on the journey is going to knock you out of the pursuit of that greater future, whatever that looks like. I agree with everything you just said in terms of like, you figure out where you are, where you want to go, reverse engineer, and then do the work. The one wrench that I would throw in that, and this is why the commitment part is so important from the beginning, from the outset, is that almost never does the initial plan that you put in place to get you where you want to go, it almost never goes that way. You can plan, you can think, you can, you know, come up with a bunch of ideas on how this is going to work. And especially if you've never been there, by the way, right? Like if you're setting a goal, you're like, I want to make $1 million, never made $1 million. I want to make $1 million, but you've never been down that path before. You can look at it and go like, okay, I need to do this, and this, and then I'll make $1 million. The problem is like, when you get to the finish line of the things that you had set out and you don't hit $1 million, that's when people go, I quit. You know what I'm saying? Instead of taking a step back and going, okay, the goal is $1 million. I thought that I was going to be able to hit that if I did this, and this. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, it looks like on that particular thing, I might have been doing that incorrectly. And this is, by the way, where mentors and a good network comes in, because those are the people that can help you examine where you went wrong. Then you look where you went wrong, you make some adjustments, you tweak it, you test it, and then you do it again. And then you do it again. And then you do it again until you get to the thing that you want, until you get to the outcome that you're trying to get. And I think that that's a really important caveat to throw in there, because like it is as simple as setting a goal and then reverse engineering and then putting in the work. But the putting in the work process is probably going to take a little bit longer than you think, especially if it's somewhere that you haven't been before. But I just wanted to throw that in there.
And there will be course corrections needed, right? Course corrections that you have to make. Cool, man. So let's see. Tell me about like your podcasting journey. So you started your podcast. Started to get a bunch of guests, and you figured out that you were really good at what you were doing, and you started helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Or how did it work for you?
Yeah, that was basically it, man. It was like, when I first started podcasting, I wanted to just make money from sponsorships. And I didn't realize how hard it was when I started.
Yeah.
And so at the time I was like, I don't want to be an internet marketer. I don't want to sell products. I don't want to be a coach. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to podcast. So I put it off for a long time. And then what ended up happening was the show started doing well and started getting me in front of like some really great people in the space.
Yeah.
And so what happened was when I was connecting with all these entrepreneurs, they just started asking me like, man, how do you do that? How did you get in front of that person? How did you interview that person? I've been thinking about starting a podcast. I just don't know how to do it. And I don't know what I would do, And so after a while, people just kept asking me about podcasting. And then I threw out a number one time, like, I'll help you start a podcast for X, I think it was like $1,500 for like 8 weeks of coaching or something. And I threw it out to someone and they took me up on it. And I was like, oh,
holy shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Threw out to a couple more people and they also did. I think it was like $2,000, for 8 or 12 weeks of coaching or something. Then I started doing these like $2,500 VIP days. And I'd work a full day of coaching for $2,500. And then that started to grow on itself. And then by the time I stopped doing coaching, people were paying $15,000 for one-on-one podcast coaching with me. And then $12,000 for a VIP day and stuff like that. And by the time it got to that point, I started to realize like, I'm going to have to start charging a lot more money if I want to get to a 7-figure mark. And that's probably not going to make sense for a bunch of people if I'm charging $30,000 for like one-on-one podcast coaching. So how do I do this better? And that's when we built out the course and started, selling it on a webinar. And then that's also around the time when we started early stage development on Guestio, and then started raising capital for Guestio as well. Was kind of during that time frame.
Cool. So man, how do you see, podcasting benefit you? So like, for example, what is like your selling point? Like, what is it that you say? I mean, did you help out, people who want to start a podcast, right? So like, what do you make it clear to them that podcasting is going to help them do or achieve?
Usually varies based on the person that I'm talking to because it does so many things. Most people are looking at it as, hey, I want to be Joe Rogan. And it's just like, well, first off, that's probably not going to happen. So let's adjust your expectations a little bit. But secondly, look at all of the other benefits that happen if that never happens, right? Assuming you never build a massive audience and you never create this, huge number of people that care to listen to you or want to hear from you. Let's look at all the other things that happen. Number one, your knowledge. Like, the number one accountability partner that I had to learning and growing was my podcast. Whenever I was bringing on an author, I felt like I had to read part or all of their book. And then I would have to ask really good questions to those people. It forced me, because I was doing 3 interviews a week when I started. It forced me to learn how to ask good questions, which is kind of a second thing, but it forced me to learn how to ask good questions, which taught me a lot during the interview process, because I was learning every time I was interviewing somebody, and I was preparing for the interviews. And when I would do solo shows, after I started doing solo shows, it was like doing some book reviews. And I felt like if I was the one that was going to be preaching networking to people, I should probably know about networking. So I read some of the top networking books that were out there and some top communication and leadership books that were out there, because I wanted to learn more about that. And I felt like it was my duty to provide the highest quality content that I could to my audience. So it helped me with learning, it helped me with communication, with asking good questions. Asking good questions is a skill that translates across multiple industries and multiple skill sets. Like, it's a skill that touches on a bunch of different skills. And
like
so
sales.
Excuse me, asking good questions became one of those things. The network, hands down, the best thing about starting a podcast was it got my foot in the door with people who I just never thought would give me the time of day. And not only did they give me some time, but they gave me like a full half hour, 45 minutes, full hour. And they were willing to sit down with me and answer a bunch of questions. And I could share that message with my audience. On that same line, authority, credibility comes directly from associating yourself with all the people that you're interviewing, especially if they're high quality people in your niche or your industry. So you're interviewing all these people. When somebody that doesn't know you comes into your world and they see that you've interviewed all these people that they already know, like, and trust, they automatically assign some of that know, like, and trust to you.
Mm-hmm.
So knowledge, communication, your network, credibility, authority. And then the last thing would just be, traffic and audience. And like I said, I put that as last because to me, podcasting's still worth it if you never get to that one. If that one is the thing that never comes through, all the other ones are still worth having the show for.
100%, man. So it sounds like a no-brainer, right? And a lot of people think about starting a podcast because of the audience, right? Because of building an audience and getting leads. But even if that doesn't happen, there's a lot more benefits to it that makes it a no-brainer. So, like, why did you see people like not pulling the trigger on starting a podcast?
A lot of people's time. And then the big thing is just always fear. People are afraid of what people are going to think about them. They're afraid they're not going to have good content. They're afraid that they're going to be judged because they say something stupid on an episode one time. Fear of embarrassment, stuff like that comes in for sure. Some people, it's definitely just a time thing. They're like, hey, I can create content on like, IG and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and all these other things because my team does basically all of it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you're doing a podcast, you got to be doing the podcast and you got to be the one showing up, talking into the microphone. So, for some people, I think it's just flat out, they don't have enough time. But for most people, I think that it's mostly something to do with fear, or they don't fully understand the complete benefits list that comes along with having a podcast. They're looking at it one-dimensionally. They're thinking of it purely as an audience thing. And they're like, well, if I'm not going to spend a bunch of money and become, Joe Rogan-esque on this thing, and I'm not, then I'm just not going to do it at all. If I'm not going to do it like that, if I'm not going to do it right, I'm not going to do it at all. And it's like, okay, I understand that, but you're missing out on the other 80% of the benefits that come along with having a podcast. The audience is the last thing. It's the cherry on top. The Sunday's made up of all the other stuff that we just talked about. And so I think, people just don't realize what it does for you. They're afraid of all the things that people are afraid of, or they don't have any time.
Fear and not feeling good enough, man. I think are a huge one because when I started my podcast, I was reaching out to these like 7-figure entrepreneurs, 8-figure entrepreneurs, and I would ask them to be on my podcast and they would say yes. And then, man, I would feel like stories would come up in my head and emotions would come up that would make me want to literally cancel my podcast with the person that just had said yes to me, right? Not because of any specific reason, but just because of me, like just because I didn't feel worthy and I didn't feel good enough to like spend an hour talking with Grant Cardone or like whoever had said yes to me. It's like fear and not feeling good enough is like a really important point and something that really holds people back. But man, I want to make sure to like ask this question selfishly for me, right? How have you been able to like leverage the network that you built with your podcast? Because right now I think you're like my 42nd episode in less than 3 months. So like I've been jumping on like 4 episodes per week, build a really good system. So and like everything's moving so fast that I haven't been able to like quote unquote leverage my network as well as I would like to. So how have you been able to do that, man?
You have to have something to offer. There's got to be value. There's got to be a skill that you are providing, or a recommendation, or a network, a relationship, something like that. There's got to be value exchange. So kind of similar thing happened to me that sounds like it's happening to you. Is it was cool that I was having all these conversations with people and I was building my network and people were getting to know who I was. Like that was all great. But then when it came down to it, if I were in those circles for any length of time, I didn't really have much value to add to the conversation. And so I think that that's a really important part of following up with and leveraging the network that you create with the show is what's the value piece that you have to offer when the interview's all done. And if you don't have an answer to that, you or anybody listening, if you don't have an answer for that, that doesn't mean that you have to go scramble to find an answer for that tomorrow. That just means probably that it's going to take a little bit of time to cultivate or craft a skill set that's valuable enough to bring up in those conversations. For a long time, bro, like I would just get myself into the rooms. I focused on one thing, get into the right room. And I would get in the right room and then I would shut up. I didn't say anything. I just asked good questions. I would linger. I would listen to conversation and I would try to get invited into the next room. Right. So like if I'm at a event, I'm trying to get into like where the speakers are, trying to connect with some people. and then they're going to go to this bar, or they're going to go, do some karaoke or whatever after the conference is over. Like, I'm there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm there, and I'm cultivating and crafting relationships as much as I can, hanging out with people as much as I can, trying to find genuine connection, relationship building with those people. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not talking a bunch. I'm not, the last thing you want to do is, like, if you're the dumbest person in the room, the last thing you want to do is open your mouth and prove it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Cool.
let people talk, listen, learn, soak up information, be a sponge, get around those people and get around them as much as you can. You'll learn more by hanging out with somebody, even outside of a business context. If they're really good at business, you'll learn more from them just by hanging out with them outside of that than you will by like taking a course sometimes, even though it's directed content. Like, sometimes just hanging out with those people, it's like the way that they carry themselves, the confidence that they communicate with, the mentality that they have, the way that they talk about numbers and sales and the activity in their lives. I was chilling, I won't say them by name, but I was chilling with a couple big time podcasters one time, and it was literally, I don't know, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. We had we were at a conference all week, and then the last night we all went out and closed down the bars, and then we ended up at this we ended up in an Uber, and then took the Uber to this like gas station sandwich shop. And we're sitting there at like 3:30 a.m. Our hotel's right next door. I was about to catch my Uber in like an hour and a half to get to the airport. And this was a few years ago. So I hadn't really been around a bunch of people who were investing in stuff and making big money and stuff like that. And like, they were talking about his first angel investment that had paid off. And it was like, oh yeah, I put in like 10 grand. I was trying to put in a lot more than that, but they wouldn't let me. They capped it off, and had my first angel investment exit, and I put in 10 grand. I got $130,000 wired to my account, last week or whatever. And that was one of the first times where I was around that type of conversation. But that's what I mean, is like, it was just a random conversation that those two were having. I was a fly on the wall sitting across from them, just listening, and we're all kind of talking, and they were talking about this investment and this thing that did 6 figures, and like, oh, we're launching this product and it did 7 figures in this amount of time. Like, it's just like, being around those people expands your mind and helps you learn and grow. And so I just tried to get around those people at first and just listen. I listened for years before I started having anything of value to offer to the conversation. But then as soon as you have that and you combine it with the network, that's when things start really expanding a lot faster than you can even keep up with sometimes.
And what was the skill? What was the value that you brought to the table? The podcasting thing?
Yeah. For me, it was the software company and the booking service and like podcasting coaching and stuff.
Nice.
Because that's when people started asking me questions. Like, when I was in those rooms, people, started engaging with me and saying like, oh yeah, like, Travis is the guy that knows about podcasting, so let's talk to him about that. Or he's the guy that knows about, networking or interviewing or building software when you're not a tech founder, or raising capital for a software startup, or an investment vehicle for early stage founders to use for angel investors to invest in their company. Like, you start stacking some of these things on top of each other, and it becomes value that you can have in conversations with people.
You start building your resume, right? Yeah, cool. Awesome, man. I love it. So, man, we're at the end of the show, and so we're at the end of the show, and I'm very glad to have had you, man. I'm very grateful to have had you as well. And man, I got a lot of value. Everything that you said was really valuable to me. All right, I'm probably going to come back to this episode and listen to it a couple of times. I always do that. So if, if I'm listening, I love what you're all about, where can I find more of you? Where can I find your content? Where can I learn more about Travis and podcasting and stuff?
Yeah. Best place is probably just my website, travischappell.com, CHAPPELL, travischappell.com. You can head over there just because that's kind of the hub. You can find Guestio over there if you want to create a free account. You can find all my social media links if you want to follow me over there. You can shoot me an email. So yeah, you can find everything over at travischappell.com.
Cool. I connected with Travis on IG. So probably if you messaged him, he'll probably respond. So yeah, awesome. Just wanted to, throw that in. Awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for being here, man. Really appreciate you. And thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms